All right, here's something that's gonna blow your mind. So within the first 30 seconds of meeting you, every woman has already categorized you into one of these three boxes. And here's the brutal part. Two of these categories guarantee you will never sleep with her, no matter how much you try. You see, after coaching hundreds of men and studying female psychology for years, I've discovered that women don't just randomly decide who they're attracted to. They have a subconscious sorting system that happens faster than you can blink, and it determines everything about how she'll interact with you. And so today, I'm gonna break down these exact three categories women put men into, the specific behaviors that land you into each one, and most importantly, how to consistently position yourself in the only category that leads to attraction and relationships. And by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why your current approach isn't working and what you need to change to start getting the results that you actually want. Now, let me mention this is going to be uncomfortable, but it's the truth that you need to hear. Let's get into it. Now, let me start off by explaining how the system actually works, because understanding this is the key to everything else. You see, women's brains are constantly running background scans of every man in their environment, making split-second decisions about safety, attraction, and just overall your potential value. Now, this is not something they consciously decide to do. It's literally biological programming that's been refined over hundreds of thousands of years. And here's what most men simply don't understand, and that is this categorization happens automatically, below the level of conscious awareness. Within 30 seconds of meeting you, her brain has already decided which box you belong in based on your energy, your body language, your social calibration, and how you overall present yourself. And here's the part that's gonna hurt, and that is once you've been categorized, it's really extremely difficult to move between those categories. Her brain has already decided how to interact with you, what role you'll play in her life, and whether you're even worth her romantic attention. This is why some guys spend months trying to win over a woman who's already mentally friend-zoned them, while the other guys can create instant attraction and have women chasing them after just one conversation. And like I said, most men have no idea that the system exists, which is why they keep making the same mistakes over and over again. So with that being said, let me quickly go through each of these categories. We're gonna start off with the one that most nice guys get stuck in, and that is the provider or the friend zone. This is where you're seen as safe, reliable, and just overall useful, but not exactly sexually exciting. Here's how you land in this category. You're being overly nice and accommodating. You agree with everything she says, and you're always available when she needs something. And you never challenge her or create any sort of tension. Now, you think you're being a good guy, but you're actually signaling that you're not confident enough to have your own opinions. Now, another major way that guys end up is by leading with resources or money. You offer to pay for everything. You talk about your job or your success early in the conversation, or you try to impress her with what you can provide rather than who you are as a person. This immediately signals that you think your value comes from what you can give her, not from your actual attractiveness. But the biggest issue is the complete lack of sexual tension or edge. You're so afraid of making her uncomfortable or being seen as inappropriate that you never create any kind of romantic or sexual energy. You essentially treat her exactly like you would treat your sister, and then you wonder why she sees you that way. Now, here's why women will keep you in this category, and that is you provide emotional support and validation without any sexual obligation on their part. You're basically useful to have around when they need someone to listen to their problems or even boost their ego, but there's no romantic excitement or challenge. Now, I work with some high-level guys, and I've seen and heard these guys spend thousands of dollars on women who categorize them as providers, taking them to expensive dinners and buying them gifts, thinking this will eventually lead to attraction. But once again, all it really does is reinforce that you belong in the provider category. And the harsh reality is that women don't sleep with men they see as providers. Instead, they use them for emotional support while sleeping with the men from category 3, which we're gonna get into. But first, let's talk about category 2, and this is actually worse than the friend zone, and that is the creep or the avoidance category. This is where you're sexually interested but socially uncalibrated, and a woman actually wants to get away from you. So here's how you might actually end up here. And the first one's gonna be just poor social awareness, which is probably the biggest factor. You don't read social cues, you continue the conversation when she's clearly trying to end them, or you approach women with inappropriate situations where they feel trapped or just overall uncomfortable. Or maybe you're making inappropriate sexual advances way too early or without building any proper rapport or comfort, which will also land you here even if the woman is attracted to you. But perhaps the fastest way to get in this category is through desperation and neediness. You're too eager, you're too available, and you're too willing to do anything for her attention. You see, women can smell the desperation from a mile away, and it triggers their avoidance instinct immediately. Now, like I mentioned, this is probably worse than the friend zone, and here's why, and that is complete rejection. Women in the friend zone will still at least interact with you and spend time with you, but women who categorize you as a creep will actively avoid you, warn their friends about you, and make sure that they are never alone with you. Now, we talked about some things that might get you here, social calibration, but even more might be, continue to message her after she stopped responding. This is why it's okay to follow up, but in terms of like talking to yourself in the DMs, like that's just weird energy, bro. Or maybe even like showing up to places where she'll be without being invited. Like you're literally placing yourself into like jail from you. Like this is something that we never want to do. This is also why sometimes the guys who think they're being bold or super confident, they're actually sabotaging themselves worse than the nice guys do. So hopefully none of you guys are in that category, God willing. But now let's move on to category 3, which is the best, which is the sexual option. This is where you're seen as sexually attractive and socially calibrated. Women actively pursue men in this category. Now here's what might actually get you categorized here. Number one is going to be confidence without desperation. You're comfortable in your own skin, you have your own life, your own goals, and you're not needy for her validation or attention. You're interested in her, but you also showcase that you don't need her. You can create sexual attention while maintaining that social awareness. You know how to flirt, create playful banter, and build romantic energy without being inappropriate or making her uncomfortable. You understand the timing, but also the social calibration. But most importantly, you operate from what I call the prize frame. You're evaluating whether she's worth your time rather than trying to prove that you're worth her time. You have standards and you're not afraid to enforce them. Now, like I said, women choose and pursue the men in this category, and here's exactly why. Number one, you're sexually exciting and you're romantically interesting, but you're also socially calibrated and just overall safe to be around. You create the emotions women want to feel: attraction, excitement, with a little bit of anticipation. Now, obviously the woman's going to be highly attracted to you from a physical standpoint if this is happening, especially if you haven't even spoken with her. But to be maintained in this category, you probably also maintain strong eye contact, you have confident body language, you create playful tension through teasing and banter, and just overall having your own opinions and being willing to disagree with her, showing interest, but at the same time, not being desperate for her approval and demonstrating that you have options and aren't settling. Now, men in this category don't necessarily chase women, women chase and pursue them. They don't try to convince women to like them either. They create situations where women want to prove themselves worthy of their attention. Now, after seeing all these categories in real life, this is the only category that consistently leads to getting laid, relationships, and women who are genuinely excited to be with you. So how do you actually avoid the first two categories and make sure you land in the third at least more than 50% of the time? Now, first, of course, is going to be your physical presence and just overall your internal confidence. Now, this is not necessarily about being the most handsome guy in the room or having supermodel looks. It's more so the intention, the effort behind your grooming style, and just your overall vibe, and of course, how you carry yourself. Do you stand tall and take up space, or do you try to make yourself smaller? Do you move with purpose and confidence, or do you seem uncertain and apologetic? Now, also something that really gets overlooked and another huge factor is more so how you interact with others, because this will provide instant social proof. You see, women are watching how other people respond to you because that gives them a hint on which category other people put you in. So ask yourself, are you someone that others respect and enjoy to be around, or are you ignored or barely tolerated by your social circle? These are all small cues that women pick up even if you're not directly interacting with her. But once you do, your initial approach and conversation style set the tone for everything. Are you confident and engaging, or are you nervous and begging? Do you create interesting conversation, or do you fall into interview mode asking basic questions? Now, me personally, I'd advise that you honestly evaluate yourself on all of these questions so that you can get a clear view of the category you most likely fall in. Like, actually take the time, write this down, and really think about how other people perceive you, because perception, frankly, is everything. But what also is everything is first impressions, be it on a dating app platform with your first picture, but also in terms of in real life whenever you go out places. You see, your first impressions create what psychologists call the confirmation bias. And once she categorizes you, her brain will look for evidence that confirms her initial assessment while ignoring evidence that contradicts it. So if you are categorized as a provider, she'll interpret your confidence as trying too hard. If you're categorized as a sexual option, she'll interpret the same confidence as attractive and desirable. This is why some guys can say almost anything and women find it charming, while other guys say the exact same thing and get rejected. Now, like I said in the intro, and here's something that most guys simply don't want to hear, and that is it's nearly impossible to change categories once you've been placed in one. Her brain has already decided how to interact with you, and changing that requires overcoming massive psychological resistance. Now, the rare exceptions usually involve a significant change in context or a long period of time where she sees you behaving completely differently. Maybe you meet her again years later when you've genuinely transformed yourself, or something happens that completely contradicts her initial categorization. But like I said, this is very rare, and truth is, trying to change categories is usually a waste of time and energy. The friend zone guy who thinks he can eventually win her over by being persistent is fighting against her brain's natural system. Or the creepy guy who thinks he can redeem himself by being nicer is still operating from the same needy energy that got him categorized as a creep in the first place. This is why prevention is so much better than correction. It's much easier to position yourself correctly from the first interaction than it is to try to overcome a bad first impression. Most men waste months or even years trying to change a woman's mind about them when they could have created attraction immediately by understanding these categories and positioning themselves strategically from the very start. So the big question is, how do you consistently land in the sexual option category? It starts with the right mindset and specific behavioral changes. Now, first, you need to shift from scarcity to abundance thinking. Instead of being grateful for any female attention, you need to genuinely believe that you have options and you're choosing to spend time with her. Now, number two, you need to develop the ability to create sexual tension by maintaining social calibration. This means learning how to flirt, tease, and just overall build that romantic energy without being inappropriate. You can practice this by reading social cues and adjusting your approach based on her responses. Now, third, most important is to work on your physical presence and your confidence. Make sure to stand tall, strong eye contact, speak clearly, and just overall move with intention. Your body language should communicate that you're comfortable with taking up space and just overall being noticed. And then number four, develop your conversational skills beyond just basic questions. You can learn how to make the conversation interesting by making observations, assumptions, telling engaging stories, and just overall creating emotional experiences through your interactions. Now, if you do want to test to see which category you are in, first off, pay attention to how quickly women respond to your messages, whether they initiate conversations with you, if they make time to see you, and how they act around you compared to other men. If women are consistently placing you in the provider category or creep category, you need to honestly evaluate your approach and make significant changes to see how to present yourself in the right way. So we talked about the categories, and here's what's really powerful about really understanding this, and that is it explains why some men struggle for years with the same dating problems while others seem to effortlessly attract women. It's not about luck or your genetics. It's really about your intention, effort, and just overall your positioning. And most men unknowingly sabotage themselves into the wrong categories because they don't understand how women's brains actually work. They think being nice will create attraction, or they think being sexually aggressive will demonstrate confidence. But both approaches land you in categories that will guarantee you never get the results that you want. The reality is that your entire dating life outcome is determined by which category women consistently place you in. And the good news is that this is completely within your control once you understand the system. And if you're ready to consistently position yourself as a sexual option and want a complete system for building confidence, social skills, and just overall a strategic approach that makes this happen naturally, then you need to learn the Romeo effect. The Romeo effect is something that I've been developing for the past 5 years, and it's the reason why myself, alongside with the hundreds of other guys I coach, always get placed in the sexual option category, no matter what your age is. You can be in your 30s, 40s, 50s, doesn't matter. The Romeo effect applies and works for every single age range. And if you want to see how this works, click the link down below. I created a free presentation for you. Check that out. I promise you, it's gonna change your dating life for the better. All right, we'll see you guys in the next video.